Hi, I'm Stephen McCormick, MSP Community Manager for Tubblog, the hub for MSPs. And joining me today is Gavin Jones, founder and director of Meetime, a consultancy that helps small and medium-sized businesses get more from the Microsoft 365 tools they are already paying for, but perhaps don't use as effectively as they might. Hello, Gavin. It's great to have you with me today.
Hey, Stephen. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now, before we start, as a bit of background, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you started your business?
Yeah, so I guess I've always been interested in technology. Back in, if everyone's old enough to remember Tomorrow's World, uh,
Yeah.
avid watcher at the time in the 80s and 90s. But I'd never done it as a career. So yeah, when I first started out of uni, I had I could either go computer science way or accounting. And for my sins, went down the accounting route. But yeah, then most of my career was at Molson Coors, the beer company, which was a great place to work in beer, obviously. And yeah, started in finance, business partnering, moved all over the company during those 15 years and into supply chain and demand management and looking after our kegs at one point in time. And then I got into some like total, business wide improvement projects and some IT projects, more on like the business sort of change end. And yeah, I guess working for a large enterprise like most big companies, it's just it's like an oil tank and it's very slow to turn around and change things. But also it's like, just the amount of emails and meetings, I'm sure like anybody can relate, is just too much. So yeah, I guess later on in my career, then I sort of focused more on like, well, if we can cut down emails and meetings, that's going to save a lot of time. And so I guess, yeah, what I'm mostly passionate about is trying to help people save time at work because obviously there is more things that you could either do at work that's more useful than emails and meetings, actually getting things done and getting closer to the sale, as well as improving your well-being. So if you don't want to work and you want to see your kids or your wife or friends and family, then that's what I'm hopefully trying to help people do as well.
Excellent. I mean, I know, especially when it comes to large corporate kind of companies that have these departments that are all about making things quicker and more efficient. You do often find that there's a lot of waste there. There's a lot of meetings that could have been emails and phone calls that could have saved weeks and weeks of kind of time being taken. So yeah, I think a lot of people who have been in that world will be able to resonate with that. So before we start talking more about your business, you worked for Molson Coors trying to look for ways to improve productivity, reduce stress. Um, so what is it that you found in doing that as a kind of niche to kind of start your own business?
Yeah, so the last job I had at Coors was transformation manager, and I was working for the sales director in the sales function, like well, in sales operations actually. But yeah, the sales director's only brief was like, I think we're spending too much time on internal stuff and not enough time selling. Go and do something. So I'd I'd had a side project to make an iPhone app because I couldn't find one that did what I wanted to do, so I sort of outsourced the development and the design and
Nice.
stuff. So I was using Slack at the time. Was relatively new, and I guess the idea of Slack was it's transformational and trying to reduce emails and meetings and just have an open way of working and just a different way of collaborating altogether. And at the time, Teams had only just come out, and I guess it was more positioned as like, well, we've borrowed stuff from Slack. And I think there was some rumors at the time that Microsoft tried to acquire Slack and got turned down. So yeah, leave it to history books to see if that was a good idea or not. But before they started doing all the things in the pandemic of like, borrowing things off Zoom, they were borrowing a lot of stuff from Slack. And so we were like, well, if we've got stuff everywhere, salesperson's desktop is like just ridiculously peppered with files that's not in the server anywhere. We've got SharePoint sites, old server things still kicking about. And like I said before, just then loads of meetings that come in because everyone's default thing to fix the problem is, well, let's just get everyone together because it was like, wants to be an inclusive company, which was really good. But then the downside is it's overly inclusive. No one can actually get anything done because everyone's talking about getting stuff done. And so, so that was sort of the precursor to setting up my own business, in that we were like, well, let's try and get everyone onto the Teams bit of Teams. So they've got like a culture of working out in the open, so we can speed up things so everyone can see stuff that's going on. Even if you don't know, they need to know, so we'll put it in an open place. And then if they don't need to know, they can ignore it. If they do need to know, then more people are involved. So it's sort of joining sales, marketing, and supply chain all together, and just trying to get a culture of working out in the open, and then help them get things done with some like task management bits that people probably aren't using, and some basic automations to speed things up. And then try and help the culture of community of like, well, using those same assets in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, because we're already paying for it. So the CIO liked it. Is actually will empower people to make content in a way that's more engaging, in a way that you'd consume in your personal life, with obviously just videos, pictures, text, podcasts, just different ways to get information across to someone, rather than just attaching a PowerPoint slide to an email, which no one's going to read because their inbox has got like 2,000 things in it and they never click any attachments. And so, the company is really big on well-being. Obviously, we want to increase sales. We've got workplace analytics, which is now called Viva Insights from Microsoft, because they'll have to keep changing the name of things. So we could see how much time people were spending before and how much time they're spending afterwards. And that sort of attack, for want of a better word, implementation of trying to get people through those three sort of broad hoops, saved like almost 3 hours per person per week, and decreased after hours work by 30% just from those activities. And we knew that there was loads more to go at, because we had the data and not everyone was working in the way that we wanted them to. So I guess that was then being able to show that approach had got some decent results. It's like, well, then thought, well, actually, I'd quite like to do that for some other businesses and see if I can help them do the same thing, pretty much.
That's great. I mean, I suppose with the COVID lockdown and things like that, there was a lot of scope for moving away from traditional means of sharing information. So people embraced tools like Teams and Zoom and things like that, because they couldn't physically be where they needed to be. And I think that people are finally realizing that you don't have to be in a big boardroom all discussing things that you already know your relevant parts for. There are other tools that you can use that are going to save you so much time. So I suppose the next question that I'm going to ask you then is what type of businesses do you typically work with then? What size of business, what level of maturity, who do you kind of approach, or who approaches you for that consultancy?
So it's interesting that that I guess that there's nothing like a crisis to help with change management. So if there's no way of doing what you did before, then change is really easy. So if you're doing like a system implementation and the old system disappearing, then you need a bit of training, but you can't go back and do what you did before because it's not there.
No.
So the pandemic was great in forcing people to use new tools, but then that had a knock-on problem in that people didn't change the way that they were working. They just went to the new tools and carried on working the same way.
Yeah.
So with Zoom and Teams and just, the ability to now I can have a meeting instantly, that then stole people's commute in the morning and stole people's commute in the evening. And actually there's no transition time of walking to a meeting room or maybe going across to another building if you're on a campus. That had a massive detrimental effect on well-being, because now there's meeting. And because you're not in the office to just go and hear what's going on, it's you need another formal meeting, for want of a better word, stuck in the diary to then catch up on stuff. So it just made the already situation of too many meetings and emails a little bit worse. And so I think a lot of companies still haven't got over that, really. So there's a big battle of do we go in the office or do we go hybrid? But then hybrid to people really just means video calls. Whereas I guess what I'm mostly interested in, although Teams does do video calls, obviously, is getting people onto the Teams bit of Teams usually, because that usually unlocks a lot of the other Microsoft 365 apps that people are already paying for. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm still a startup. I've been in business 3 years, so still adapting and trying new stuff. I guess when I first started, I was going after some bigger enterprise size customers, which I got a couple of. But obviously, like we said before, they're a big oil tanker. Takes some ages to make a decision, and you might not be even speaking to the right person. And so, yeah, a lot of my clients now are small, medium-sized businesses where obviously it's a lot easier to get to the decision maker who's the owner, and they can make a decision and get started in a week or so, even if not a couple of days. So yeah, it just needs to be a big enough organization that there's some pain about how they're collaborating together already. So usually I like to say like 20 knowledge workers and upwards. But yeah, I've had some interest lower down, and obviously some interest a lot larger organization than that. But yeah, it's really just trying to get someone that's even just got an inkling that they could be working in a more efficient way. Is usually just a nice little start. But
Yeah. I think you're right there that you want to kind of get away from those that have loads of gatekeepers that won't let you through to speak to that person that's going to make that decision. And I think that if you approach those companies that are both ready to make those changes and kind of sign up for the service, then you're going to get a better return, but also they are going to make better use of your advice too, which I think is perfect. So we've talked about Teams, and I'm assuming office collaboration and kind of productivity tools are also part of that. But in the businesses that you're working with, what are you seeing as the most commonly underused tools that Microsoft 365 has to offer? What's being kind of like left and not touched, and where it could be very useful?
Yeah, I say three things usually. So obviously we talked about Teams, but that is like the massive one for me, because if you can get into the Teams bit of Teams and away from chat and away from video calls, then that allows you like the asynchronous sort of platform to be able to do everything else that will speed up time.
Yeah.
So removing emails or meetings and then just working better together. So that is the biggest one, but obviously we've talked about that before. And so the other two are then like, it's still amazing that people work without like a task manager tool. And obviously there's a couple in the Microsoft ecosystem. So Planner for shared ones and To Do for your own tasks predominantly. And even, I still like writing on pen and paper, although it's now
same.
an iPad. But I think tasks is the only thing that I like to do more than one time. Because obviously, in efficiency circles, I like touch stuff once and, don't want any waste of redoing it. But like for tasks, if it's important enough to do it, I want reminding from like multiple places. So I like to write it down to get in my head and to go on to do to get it done, and then put it onto Planner so other people can see it and get some accountability. And then still SharePoint, bizarrely, like the intranet. Is just so underutilized, especially in SMBs. So obviously for enterprise, then you probably already got one. But either way, people usually then end up like locking it down for a small number of people to go and put stuff on it. And so usually it just turns into like a derelict graveyard of like, uber corporate news in an enterprise that no one really is so far removed that no one either reads it. Or in an SMB, there's just nothing on it. It's just a place for like HR policies and stuff that no one ever reads, but legal like it because you can tell people off if they're doing something wrong. So yeah, it's just really getting it's and SharePoint is like people hate it just because they've heard of SharePoint and they've had the old version, and it has been pretty terrible in the past. And Microsoft don't do a great job of marketing it because it does like loads of stuff that you wouldn't think it does. But yeah, just getting the intranet into like a really vibrant place that everyone can sort of see what's going on. So in that, I guess, normal making, marketing, selling a product example, like people seeing how it's showing up in store, and sales guys, doing videos themselves in store, they can see all the displays and things and the price promotions, and marketing, bringing to life some of the marketing and then passing on sales and supply chain, be able to say, yeah, there's new things just gone down the line. Yes, that can actually be transformational, and it's stuff that's not particularly new technology. It's just people have not really utilized it. So yeah, it's interesting.
I think a lot of people have used SharePoint and things like that, and I think you're absolutely right. They might have had a bad experience of it. It's been implemented badly. The right admin privileges haven't been passed on, and people have told me that in the past it has been quite a clunky experience. But actually, if it's used right, if it's used correctly, and now with all the new features that Microsoft products have that they really don't shout out about, and you kind of come back to them and you go, oh, I didn't know it could do that. I think you're right. I think some people do need that kind of guidance to use their tools the way that they're intended for in the now, not how they were when they first encountered them. So I think there's a lot of that, and I think that having somebody like you being able to kind of tell them, you could be doing this better and actually saving yourself so much time, I think that's really valuable. So
yeah, and I'm niched into Microsoft 365 just pragmatically because that's what people are paying for. But like, I'm not particularly bothered about Microsoft. I like all the new technology. So it's like, all my hardware is Apple, so I don't have any Microsoft or PC hardware. And so, yeah, I hopefully know enough. There's like for task management, there's actually quite a lot of nuances in Microsoft, and actually you might be better using a third party thing. Whereas for like intranets, that's the biggest thing where people have gone third party for like an HR software and then ended up using their intranet, and it's just a bit messy. And all they're selling things like, oh, it's better than SharePoint because SharePoint's really clunky. And it was probably like 10 years ago, like you say. But now it's like, well, actually, it's fine as long as you don't do any coding and stuff in it. It's just use the stuff out of the box, and it's gonna, Microsoft can update it, and it's gonna look great. So, yeah,
definitely, yeah. Okay, so we've touched upon this a little bit. We talked about how saving yourself time gives you more time to kind of use on the things that you want to do. And I mean, I know from personal experience that mental health is a big issue for especially small business owners, ones that aren't kind of enterprise level. So how does what you do for them help in reducing their stress and improve their overall well-being? What things are you being told by your customers that they've appreciated from what you do?
Yeah. So I guess being an employee now, I'm a business owner, is like, and being an employee for most of my career, switching into business owner is like such a different, like, mental roller coaster than being an employee.
It so is.
So to talk about them in the same breath is not doing them justice to, it's night and day. So yeah, I guess for an owner, then it's I guess your employees are more like your children. So like, if as soon as you've got one employee, it's like now you're looking after them ahead of you usually. If you follow like the servant leadership type principles. So now you're paying their salary, they've got problems in their life, and you need to make sure they're performing their job as well. So it's like having a child, not in a derogatory way, but someone that you're caring for as an employee. So I guess making sure that they are equipped enough to manage their own mental health and have enough time to go and do that. And flexible working and hybrid working is now a lot bigger, isn't it? So having a small business that's got the platform to be able to do that, again, that they can then go and hire and hopefully get some better talent. hopefully that's reducing their stress a little bit. I work with an MSP that was in London, moved to Ireland. They've got employees in South Africa and Spain, and so just the amount of access to talent we've got now, if we get our platforms right, is that can be transformational and hopefully reduce some stress rather than just thinking about, well, my business is in Bolton, so I can only hire people in Bolton. That's sort of gone these days, if they're knowledge workers. But yeah, also I guess hopefully what is reducing their stress is that sometimes just like not knowing, or the fear of the unknown. It's like, well, are you being efficient or not? It's like, I'm not really sure. There's loads of buzzwords about AI and keep getting bombarded about cybersecurity and stuff. And so hopefully just someone coming in, because our most popular product is just like an assessment and recommendations, I guess, like most consultants, but also help out with implementing the recommendations if people want to as well. But I guess just knowing like, well, here's what we think is possible. Actually, you could do this on the Microsoft stuff because you're already paying for it. Actually, Microsoft isn't very good at this bit, so actually, best off putting that in there. And just having someone come in and say, yeah, actually, you're doing all of this work. And we had our most recent client who is with the best intentions set off down this path, and then now someone coming in and showing them, it's like, well, this is actually taking like one of your admin staff an entire day a week to do this, and it's not even producing the results that it did when you first started it. If they started again from scratch, they definitely wouldn't have made that decision. But obviously, as businesses and life continues, you just sort of iterate into things and end up doing stuff that you didn't realize. So yeah, hopefully just having someone come in and show you what's possible is hopefully reduces a little bit of stress for them as well.
I think you're right. It's sometimes just having the time and the space to be able to kind of to work on the things that need the work, and so that you're not just chasing your tail, going kind of around it in circles, saying I'm not getting the best out of what I've got, whether that's in terms of staffing or in terms of the technology. And if you're a business owner, it's I mean, this has been said every place that I've been to, they have the same problem, that they want to spend less time working in their business and more time on their business. So if they've got the time to actually do that, to kind of streamline processes, to focus more on gaining new clients and that kind of thing, then that's the kind of thing that I think MSPs definitely want it in their lives. And I think that if you've got a niche of being able to kind of do that, then it will help reduce their stress, and it will make things more efficient for them too, which is a win-win. So I think what you're doing and why you're doing it is it's really important that business owners know that you do sometimes need to let somebody else do that critical thinking for you to help you get to where you want to be. And I think it is really important there. So
yeah, I always think of it kind of like business consulting by stealth, because I've got a YouTube channel. Most of the leads come in and they're like, can you do some training? And I'm always trying to think, well, what do you think is going to happen after the training? Because training only solves a knowledge problem.
It does.
Have you got if you haven't got a knowledge problem, if you've got a cultural problem, or a change management problem, or are you even is the training going to attack anything that's going to help your business even? So it's like, well, yeah, you could train someone on everything that Microsoft offers and everything that Google offers and everything that Apple offers, but it's like, well, have they got enough time to pick through that, and are they going to care? So they might even fall asleep during the training. So it's like, well, it's a lot easier to go and see how a business is running and then recommend some ways to improve. One, because it helps the owner, obviously, but two, because it's starting that change of like, well, the people feel bought in because they've been able to voice, like, this isn't working. We've told this guy 10 times and we're not changed. And so being able to link the training to like, well, you said that you were struggling with this. Here's a way you can do your specific job better. Is usually helps everybody in a better way.
Absolutely. So, going back to business owners, then, if you could give a new starting out business any piece of advice on how to get the most out of what they've got, and how to best use their time, what would it be? And I know that that's a huge question, so it doesn't have to be an epic answer. Just
Yeah.
Because I could go on about this for ages myself. So just a kind of general kind of answer, I think.
Yeah, it's tricky a startup because I guess, if you read any like business books or anything, it's like get a business plan and do this planning and blah blah blah. And then when you actually start to run one yourself, it's like that all goes out the window. You're just like into it, trying stuff out and see what sticks, and trying some other stuff and constantly learning. So yeah, and a lot of small businesses like to start with Google because they've already used it in their personal lives probably. And but yeah, at some point then though, it's like you start to what started to work is starting to break down, both in processes and platforms. And that's usually where we get involved. So yeah, I guess if you were starting from scratch and wanted to get out of that plateau, is maybe just going for Microsoft early, although I don't sell licenses, so I don't particularly care what people use. But yeah, just having somewhere where you can sort of asynchronously collaborate, whether that's Slack or Teams or whatever Google's thing is at the moment, Spaces. It's just really going on that rather than getting used to email, because if you into email, it tends to persist rather than be able to get out of it later. Yeah.
I realized that what I basically asked you that there was, how do we make it so that people don't need you? And I didn't mean to do that. Because of course you, as you just reminded us there, you're a great person to call kind of later on when you've been established for a while, and actually you've maybe not used the best from the tools that you've bought in. So yeah, I kind of asked you a question which kind of made the need for you redundant there. So
that's good. I'm a big fan of trying to work yourself out of a job, and then you find that you never out of a job if you try and work yourself out of a job.
Exactly.
So yeah, I always say to my clients, like, at some point you shouldn't need me, otherwise I'm not doing a very good job.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect pitch, isn't it? It's saying I'm trying to make it so that you don't need me to come back. Hopefully the path that I've set you and your business on will actually be one that you stay on for a long time and get the best from. So yeah. I've got one last question for you, Gavin. Is there a good book or a good podcast that you can recommend to our listeners and watchers?
Yeah, so I've been out of the podcast game for a bit with missing the commute over 3 years. I used to listen to them quite a lot, but I was big into Tim Ferriss, who's probably everyone's already in and out of that one. But yeah, book wise, the book that I implement the most, although I've never reread, is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And I always think of it as like just some things that I need to do in the morning just to be normal. And if I start to miss them for too long, something gives, get a bit ratty with the wife or kids, or something's off. Which in the book he's just got like a really simple mnemonic of time savers or life savers even, which is like silence, meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, which is like journaling. And yeah, it's worth reading the book. I mean, if you want to get out of bed early and you're struggling to turn the snooze button off, just hearing his story of all the stuff that he's been through and him be able to do this, you're like, oh yeah, actually, I should be able to just get out of bed when I need to. Yeah, and then following on from that is like the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, which is a nice little just one little page a day, just to sort of set your mind right for the rest of the day, I find. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's perfect. So all of those things that you've just mentioned, plus your YouTube channel, we will include them in the show notes. So you can get them at the bottom of wherever you're watching this video. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you about, asking more about what it is that you do for businesses, or how they can get more out of what they've got, how can they go about that? What platforms are you on?
Yeah, so I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. If you want to DM me on LinkedIn, that's fine. And if you go to meetimeservices.com, so MEETIME services.com, then we've got some free training on there if you want to find out more, either individual training or for organizations. And then if you're ready to work together, or you want to find out about the modern working assessment and recommendations, then you can book a call on that website to have a chat, 45 minutes for free, see if we can help and if we're a good fit to work together.
Fantastic. I want to thank you again, Gavin. It's been really nice to talk to you. And that's it. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Stephen.
Well, that was Gavin Jones of Meetime, and I've been Stephen McCormick for Tubblog, the hub for MSPs. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and we'll see you next time.